In 2011, Syria had a population of 23 million people. Since then, 12 million Syrians have fled their homes, either displaced internally inside Syria or as refugees in other countries. It's a human tragedy, but it's also a long-term policy challenge. RAND has been studying this issue since 2013. Our research agenda focuses on 4 key areas that promise the greatest impact: humanitarian assistance, education, jobs, and security.
This is an urban refugee crisis. 90% of refugees live in cities, not in camps.
The cities in host countries have experienced huge influxes of traumatized people.
This puts a strain on public services, increasing the competition for jobs and education.
Solutions should be more about helping expand existing public services in the host countries rather than creating new parallel public services managed by the international aid community.
But that's not where the money goes. In a recent appeal for $5.8 billion, $4.6 billion was directed to the UN and NGOs, with only $1.2 billion for host country governments.
This is out of balance. It favors the administration of emergency aid over long-term sustainable solutions.
In Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey, less than half of Syrian refugee children are in school. That's 900,000 kids.
Many have missed years of formal education and have been forced by poverty to go to work or to get married early.
School space shortages are one of the biggest barriers to student attendance.
We found that most international funding is aimed at short-term, informal education, when we should be thinking long-term, developing capacity in public school systems and host country governments to build schools, hire teachers, and integrate Syrian children into government schools. Refugees need to be able to support themselves. They want to work.
But they find themselves in fragile economies that are already struggling with high youth unemployment.
With the exception of Iraq, many of the countries hosting refugees have laws forbidding them to work.
RAND researchers joined experts from all over the Middle East to look at the problem in a study commissioned by the United Nations Development Program.
The study identified ways to create jobs,
Helping Syrian healthcare professionals to work in clinics,
helping Syrians start businesses,
and Syrian teachers to work in schools.
To provide greater access to EU markets and concessional loans to build infrastructure.
We have looked at the security implications of the refugee influx, and while these have produced enormous strains in those countries, thus far they've been manageable.
But continued security depends on smart policies that improve the lives of refugees while taking care of their own citizens.
The unprecedented Syrian refugee flows have affected the European Union itself, arguably swaying the Brexit vote. The European Union took steps to strengthen its borders and is increasing its foreign assistance to the Middle East and to Africa.
RAND analyzed the conditions under which refugee populations become radicalized. We found that circumstances matter. Poverty, lack of personal opportunities, the treatment they receive from their host countries are all factors in radicalization.
In testimony before Congress, we have pointed out that refugees have not posed a significant threat to U.S. security. Almost all of the attacks and plots since 9/11 have involved homegrown terrorists, many of them U.S.-born.
How do we help improve the lives of refugees over the longer term?
The real question is, can we prevent a Syrian lost generation?
Our goal is to provide an evidence base for policy choices that are going to affect millions of lives.